Yeah. Just give me the right to share. But before we share, can we take probably a minute breather? We've been here for like we just take a minute, then we can start over, so that we can maybe sync whatever we just talk about. We talk about a lot of things, and I would want to say, hey, let's also sync what we've done, because when we start off, it would be very short, because it's stretched out for 3 weeks, and each day has its own thing that we're going to cover, and by so I want to maximize whatever short time we have to cover as much as possible, and to give you the best I can for the time that we have. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the overview of what we're going to cover for the next 3 weeks. Now, everything will be, I think, as Amni has said, is that you're going to have it stretched, and you go to the platform. You're going to see how everything is spun out in terms of the timings, in terms of the topics, in terms of the resources that you're going to get, and how you're going to get those resources. So yeah, and that's what we ought to do. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to give you a high-level overview of the topics, and then cover just a little bit section of what to come for tomorrow, and then on Tuesday. Right. Okay. So I'm ready. If you're ready, Belly. All right. I think I am now. Okay. All right. So from here, you see that I'm more of looking into that screen, because that's where my content will be, but my camera is here. So I have like multiple screens. So I have my camera on this. So I have my screen that I'm sharing on this side, but my notes will be here. So I'll be pretty much looking at this rather than looking at the camera. So I'm not camera shy, sorry, but I'll be pretty much looking at this camera. So if you may, can you tell me that you're seeing a whiteboard screen? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Awesome. So that will be the screen that you will be looking at. So into a second. So as we've been talking about the whole concept, so we'll be talking about AWS Cloud Practitioner, and this is the official documentation from AWS. Okay. So it's not the jumbo stuff you just Google it on the cloud, and because I'm a certified instructor. So every time I go into a class, I have to use the official documentation from AWS, and the official documents from AWS. So this is the course that we're going to talk about for the next 3 weeks. So it will be AWS Cloud Practitioner Essentials. That means this is the first step on your cloud journey. We start talking about AWS cloud journey. This will be your first step. So, and what are we going to cover in this course? So we're going to have 10 modules, but then there will be 2 more modules that we've added into this course. The reason is we want to at least make you get the certificate. So at the end of the course, after the 10 modules, we have 2 more modules, and those 2 more modules are specifically for the exam purposes. How do you prepare for the exam? How do you what is the exam look like? So those are the 2 modules that are towards the end of the course. So we have 10 modules that we are going to look at, and each module is designed for different purposes. As you saw in the previous presentation, we were like there were a couple of things that some of the resources that if you want to know more about cloud computing, this is the link, this is the documentation where you can go and get some of this information. So all this is mapped to the documentation and the resources that we're going to offer. So this is the typical official documentation, but then we are going to break it down into several sessions so that we are able to give you the best that we can. So not all the sessions in this presentation will have a practical session, all right? For example, in terms of the pricing and support. We may have just a little bit, but not all the support. But then most of the everything else will have a practical session to it, apart from the pricing and support, migration and innovation, and also global infrastructure and reliability. Now, I'll change the arrangement of how the modules looks like. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to start from the introduction, okay, and then I go to global infrastructure. And the reason is I don't want to start building a house where I have not bought a piece of land. So you can't build a house in the air. All right. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go just from module 1, module 3, module 4, then go back to module number 2, because I have to build a house where I have bought a piece of land. So first of all, if you when you identify where you want to buy the piece of land, you buy the piece of land, you subdivide it, and you say find a place that you want to build that house. So that will be the structure of you're going to build this house. Okay. So I'll skip number 2, we go 3 and 4, then we go back to number 2, so that we have a flow of information based on a certain module or a certain progress that I want us to follow. So after that, we're going to follow the rest of the modules as they are without making any changes. Now, yes, say something.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, some of the stuff we could kind of go into tomorrow.
Right.
We could just, hop in this module 1, and just give people, like, I think most people here, they have no idea what AWS is, and it's just like, people are kind of, they might be a little thirsty to see, like, what is this about,
Right.
How do we relate it to the real world?
Yeah. So yes. So we're going to make sure that for this session, well, based on the introduction that we did, is that we need to start the ground up. So you have to start from ground zero, and then we're going to build that into a more experienced and into let's say a proper knowledgeable information that we can give. So we're going to start over just one step at a time, and I'm going to be doing the introductions slowly. No rush. There'll be no rush because we're going to cover everything in due time. So as I said, my name is Stephen Kimani, originally from Kenya, and what I'm doing right now is that I'm a lead DevOps engineer with an organization called Next Step, which is based in Texas, but I'm currently on working a different role, and I'm also a lead trainer in the same organization. Currently, I'm also working with AWS as a freelancer with training. So covering all the entire North American region and also all the EMEA region, that is Europe, Middle East, and also Africa. So I didn't mention this. I think we didn't mention this. I also like I like watching movies and also doing some walking into the nature, and also going through just generally the animal kingdom and then nature. That's why I was suggesting to Ronke and Shange that, hey, you can go to to the safaris in Africa. They are very, very beautiful, and then you can go to see the wild beast. I think they already did the migration. They only do that migration once every year. So yeah, you can go and do the migration. This awesome to see. So what are we going to cover? So what you're going to see that we're going to use video presentation videos, as you saw from in previous presentation. We're also going to do some demonstrations where I'm going to do practical sessions, and we of course you're going to do some of the practical sessions that you're going to have. Let's say we are talking about EC2, for example. You're going to have those demonstrations. You do the same way in one of the accounts. You log into that account, you see how you log into the account, how you provision resources, and how you use those resources. Those we're going to use them. That's why we have the link to the resources and also the knowledge checks. So let me talk about the knowledge checks just a little bit. So for the knowledge check, usually is when we cover a topic. Let's say we are talking about EC2 instance, for example. At the end of the course, I have to see did the concept sink, or did we understand the concept? So we'll be typically asking just actually 5 questions in every topic, right? So we go through some of the questions, say, hey, did we cover this? What do you think about this? And one of the things I would say about the AWS is, especially the exam, is that all the questions are pretty much similar, right? Only just 1 word or 2 words makes the whole difference. So yeah, so that will be pretty much of what you're going to be doing in for the next 3 weeks. But for today and tomorrow, we might not have any practical, but the next session, we might have start now getting deeper into the concept. So at the end of this course, what are going to be, we're going to talk about working with AWS, differentiating between different resources of different cloud computing. Talk about why do we need to go to AWS now, especially when we talk about the benefit of AWS. Now this will be in 2 parts. So it'll be what are you going to gain, you as an individual, when using AWS? At the same time, how is the organization going to benefit when using AWS? You're going to see that different organizations have their own reasons why they go to AWS. For example, if you look at Netflix, they are on AWS. The question is, are they on AWS because they want to save costs, or because they want to reach so many users? So each organization have their own reasons why they go to AWS. So we're going to look at those benefit of them using AWS. So we're also going to look at the core, we call them the core service categories on AWS. Why core? Because those services, whatever you do on AWS, you have to use either of those resources. That's why they are called core, and that's why they are covered at the fundamental level, because every aspect of AWS must come from either of those. And one of the things that we're going to cover will be compute, networking, database, and storage. So those are categories. Okay, those are categories. So once we take it, we are talking about compute. What does compute entail? What are the services that are categorized under compute, right? They talk about networking, databases, and storage. So for those guys, for example, for Abel, is that we want to move now from this fundamental to another level, right? And probably a developer. So it's important that we understand the initial concept. Then you say, when you go moving to the next level, it would be an introductory. You cementing what you covered at the fundamental, right? Also, we have the well-architected framework, and in the well-architected framework, you'll be listening, or every time you go to any video, right, regarding AWS, they usually say, we are going to follow the best practices. We are going to follow the best practices. And you need to know what are these best practices that you're going to talk about. So that's when you talk about the AWS well-architected framework. So we have the framework, and also we have the tool. As much as we're going to talk about AWS itself, there's a concept called the shared responsibility model. And this is where we're going to be explaining who you as the user of AWS, what are your responsibilities, right? And AWS, as the person hosting or as the organization hosting your resources, what are their responsibilities? And in terms of the exam, that is one of the I think most of the questions revolve around shared responsibility. I've seen a couple of questions around shared responsibility. So during our course of interactions, I'm going to be touching on, let's say, if you're talking about shared responsibility, is there a question regarding this in the actual exam that we have right now? I think I don't have I would say I have a photographic memory, but I have a couple of questions that I've seen in this set of questions about or about this course that you're going to take. So I'll be saying, hey, there's a question here. Please note that there's a question on this topic. It asks, maybe it goes through specific area. Then later we talk about the migration. So we have the security services and also cloud migration. Then the rest will be pretty much the same of the to articulate the financial benefit of AWS in an organization in terms of cost management. Because at the end of the course, we're going to look at what are the core pillars that will be, or we call them the domains, right? What are the domains that AWS will cover into the exam? Now, here we're talking about the theoretical bit of it, okay? And then during the theoretical bit of it, this is for the exam purposes. And also, I'm going to be digging deeper into theory during the demonstrations, because you may know, as I said earlier on, is that you may be good in theory, right? You know how things works, right? But then when I give you, okay, here is the account, what can you do with it? You find that, hey, I only know how it does theoretically, but in terms of the practical, we may not know a lot. So that will be part of our discussion. Then lastly, or not lastly, we talk about the billing, account, and the pricing model, which it covers most of the things that in terms of the AWS questions for cloud practitioner. You have to know how to bill, when to bill, and what to bill, and what are the tools that we use for billing purposes. So that, ladies and gentlemen, that will be what you're going to cover for the next 3 weeks, I think, until 30th. So if I'm not wrong, that things have changed. If right, Ramil? Is that right? Until the 30th, right?
Yeah, until the 30th.
Yes. So that's what we're going to cover until the 30th. Anyone with a question? Awesome. So if there's no question, I'm going to do the first bit, but I'm not sure that the time will allow us.
I think we should try to like end a little bit early today. Maybe we
Right.
do like 20 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and then 15, 20 minutes, and then we could kind of like end it early.
Yeah, I just want to go deep on the first day, so we have a lot to consume, so that come tomorrow we say, okay, so tomorrow we'll have the right tools and everything. So how much time do we have?
Let's say 20 minutes.
Okay. So 20 minutes. Let me do a quick introduction, nothing much, nothing concrete, right? Then tomorrow, that's when we get the rubber hits the road, okay? So that we are able to say, okay, we start off when our head is, let's say our mind are clean, because so that we are able to go through the portal, go through the question, and also be posting some of the resources. I think I'll also be at some of the resources. I'll share with you, Bailey, some of the resources that I've just downloaded from AWS for more resources to give our students more what they can do. So so for tomorrow, let me get this one down a little bit for a second. For tomorrow, so that's his turn. So just give me a sec. Let me pull out something else. There we go. Okay, so okay, so here we talk about AWS introduction to AWS Web Services, and before we go to AWS services, we talk about the cloud computing model, because we say, okay, we're going to talk about AWS, but what about the other vendors? Because if you can recall very well, Ronke said she's more into she's in AWS at the same time she's in Azure, right? You might say some other people are in Huawei, for example. Others are in GCP. I remember, if I'm not wrong, we have Abel that says, "Hey, well, how about GCP?" And what you're going to do is that, can we compare all those resources, also all those vendors into AWS? Because our focus is we're going to be looking at AWS specific. So please, if you have the idea of other vendors, please keep it aside. But doesn't mean that they do not work. So if I'm not wrong, and Ronke, you can chip in here for a second. Is there any difference when it comes to services? Because for me, I would say I've only done GCP a little bit, but it was online. What I know is a Linux is Linux, right? There's no Linux in AWS and Linux in Azure. Are they different, or is just the same Linux?
Yeah, they're the same. So like going off of your point, the platforms, at least AWS versus Azure, they are the same in that you can accomplish the same goals. They have the same categories and types of resources. And at the end of the day, it really just comes down to which cloud platform do you prefer, which one has the customer support that you feel comfortable with, that sort of thing. But the types of projects you can do on AWS, you can also do with Azure, and GCP likewise.
Awesome, thank you. So that's what I wanted to just know that we have a couple of vendors but we are going only to focus on AWS. There's so many. We have Azure, GCP, Huawei, IBM, and so many others. But for our case, we're going to primarily focus on AWS, right? Now, before we go to deep dive into AWS, we need to know what is cloud computing. Just to ask, from your own maybe thinking, or from your thought process, what is cloud computing?
I'm assuming cloud would be like the internet. I don't know. It would be like,
just give it a shot. Give it a shot. This is and by the way, before you answer that, in this class,
like I was gonna say, like, it's like the process of like using like storage and servers or any kind of programming just like over the internet, rather than any form of like hard coding or hardware service.
Awesome. That's a good try. Abba, you were saying something before I cut you short?
no, I think he said everything.
All right. So when you go to say on the browser, or say what is cloud computing, it will tell you it is the delivery of IT resources over the internet through a pay-as-you-go model, right? The delivery of IT resources over the internet through a pay-as-you-go model. So that is the concept that we want to, we're going to break that statement down, okay? So don't worry about the statement. But there are different types of deployments on cloud computing. I'm not saying about AWS, different types of cloud computing deployments on that we have right now. So we have 3 of them, and those are the 3 that we're going to talk about in the next few, maybe 5 minutes before we go to. We may not go to the benefits, but we're going to talk about the cloud computing models. So throughout this course, okay, we are going to start our own business, of our own coffee shop business. So at the back of our mind, this is the business that we're going to start. Okay, so our business is a coffee shop, okay, where we have a customer and also we have baristas, right? So when you go to a coffee shop, you order. You say, hey, I need a cappuccino, probably with milk or without milk, or whatever you want to add, right? So in this here, we want to give a concept where you make a request and someone responds to that request, right? So you go to your browser, you say Facebook, right? So when you do the Facebook, it returns it gives you a response that you say, hey, these are all the options for Facebook. You say you want to Facebook, log in. So in that concept, you say you go to a coffee shop, you say, hey, I want some coffee, or you go to I'm not sure whether they are Pizza Hut in, because I see, if I'm not wrong, most of us are coming from Georgia, if I'm not wrong, right? We have a folk from Georgia, if I'm not wrong. Someone's from Washington DC, someone from, I think what was this, from Brooklyn. All right, anyways, so whenever you go to either to a pizza shop, you always say, hey, I need a pizza. Which one do you want? You want pepperoni, you want probably veggies, whatever you want. So the point is, you make a request, okay? And whenever you make a request, you always expect someone to respond to your request, right? And that is the concept. We call it client-server model. In a client-server model, you have you making a request, and the server is responding. And what is a server? So this is a huge computer, and this is what we're going to be talking about when we talk about cloud computing. We'll be talking about servers, right? So we have into our coffee shop, we have someone fulfilling your request, someone taking that order. Probably is a drive-through, right? You make your order, probably is Burger King, right? You're doing a drive-through. So you first make an order, okay? And then you go to the other window where you receive your what? Your order, right? So it's a client-server model where you have somewhere everything is stored. You only need to ask for it. You ask for it, it's pulled out from the server. So that is the concept that we ought to be dealing with when I talk about serving resources or delivering of resources. So this is one of the type of the model that you're going to probably main focus on it. It's a client server model. You make a request, you receive it. You want to you want something, you say, hey, I need 2 coffees. I need two cup of coffee, probably with your own description. Someone has to respond to it. That is the client server model, where you are the client making the request on your browser, and there's a server which will fulfill that request, right? So is the concept going in right now? Are we all on the same page?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. So we have three main categories of cloud computing. But as I said earlier on, and I give a description of what is cloud computing. So what did I say? It's cloud computing. I gave a very one-line statement of cloud computing. So I did that on purpose because I wanted to come and now take that statement so that we can now subdivide that statement into 4 main categories. So what did I say? It's cloud computing. According to the dictionary, or to when you do a Google. Okay. So I said cloud computing is the delivery of IT resources over the internet through a pay-as-you-go model. So if you go to the browser, what is cloud computing? That will be the answer that you get. Is the delivery of IT resources over the internet through a pay-as-you-go model. But then, what does that statement really mean? So we're talking about delivery of IT resources. So we want to make sure that we get the resources when we want them. So for example, if we are, let's say we are living with our parents, okay? We don't have any job, right? And you say, hey, hey, Dad, you know what? I need MacBook Pro, or sorry, yes, probably no. I need iPhone 14 Max Pro. Okay, so if you're not well enough, they'll say, hey, you know what, can we get it at the end of the month, or right now I don't have any cash, probably let's do it next month. That's what will happen. So not everything that you ask, you get it immediately. Some may take some time for you to get it. Probably you want a car. Not everyone can afford a car immediately you ask them, right? So when you talk about access services on demand, you're saying, I want it, you get it immediately. You don't have to wait. You don't have to go to any bureaucratic things. In a typical office, you ask for a computer, right? Let's say you want, let's say you are using HP or Dell that is outdated, and you want right now to use MacBook Pro. So you go to your boss and you say, hey, I think my laptop is too old and it's not, it has been underperforming for the last couple of weeks. Can I get a new machine? So they say, hey, what machine are you looking at? I'm looking at MacBook Pro, right? Okay, 16 GB with 500 SSD. Oh, okay, that's a good machine. Let me start the process. So you send that request to your immediate supervisor. Then the supervisor will send that request to the manager to the finance then to the logistic by the machine. Then instead of taking that machine to you, it goes to the IT for the configuration, right? Can you see all that chain of information, that chain for you to get a machine? So it takes you probably 3 weeks for you to get your machine up and running on your desk. So if you're having a production application that we are running, it might take 3 weeks for you to get your machine, which is not, we are trying to avoid that. So when you talk about accessing services on demand, is that you ask for it, you get it immediately. You don't have to wait for any bureaucratic process to go through. You ask for it, you go for it. Then we're talking about provisioning compute resources as needed. So as I was asking for the machine, I said, you know what, I needed a 16 GB RAM with 16 GB RAM with 500 SSD. But then the organization cannot afford that. They can only afford at 8 GB with 256 hard disk. So you see, you are not getting whatever you want. You wanted an iPhone Pro Max, but your parent can only afford iPhone 13, right? So at this point, you are not getting what you want. You are not only getting what can be afforded. But when you come to AWS, or when you come to talk about cloud computing, you get the resources that you want. You say you want a 16 GB machine, that is exactly what you're going to get. Now, when you're paying, we don't pay for, and this is the concept that I want us to learn. And I think later in the course, we are going to see how they pay for what you use work. Because within the compute realm, we usually pay for what we use. If we do not use it, we don't pay for it. Now, that concept, most people misunderstand that statement. You pay for only what you use. So I've seen a couple of people assuming that it is when the application is not being used. Remember, if you have the application that is running on AWS, if someone is, and let's say it's also a website, if someone is not accessing the website, that is not part for what you pay for what you use. What you pay for what you use is the actual resources. It's not whatever is running inside there. It is the actual resources. If it is a server that you've provisioned, okay? If it's a server that you provision, it's not what running in the server that you pay for what people are using. It's not what people are accessing. It is what is running, what is making that application run. So if it is a server, right, you pay for the server when it is up and running, okay? But if it is not running, let's say it is stopped, then you're not going to pay for it when it is stopped. Remember, if it is stopped, that doesn't mean the application is not running. It could be the application is running in the background, and in one way or the other, the application is, the server is stopped. So that means that you only pay when the services are up and running, but not the application when it is running. So if you're talking about a website, okay? If you're talking about a website, you'll find that it's not when people are accessing your website that you pay for it. If someone is not accessing your website, no, that's not the concept. The concept is when the actual resources is up and running. If you're running a server, then that is when you, as long as it is at a running state, that's when you pay for it. If it is stopped, then you ain't going to pay for it. To that far, any question?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yes, for the last one, how you said like pay only for what you use. So that's like, I guess just to reiterate what you're saying, like, so if it's down, let's say there's maintenance that needs to be done, the payments will just be on pause, like just like that, or
Right.
if it's if it's like a monthly thing, let's say you're paying monthly, do you still they would just hold it off or?
Okay, that's a good question. Do we pay monthly or do we pay? So as we're going to see, once we start getting into resources, different resources are paid differently, right? There are those resources that you pay per second, per hour, the number of requests that are coming in. So it depends on what you're doing. So as long as that services is not running, for example, if you're having a maintenance and it is stopped, right? So it's not been used at all, it is stopped. So the state is your machine running? Let's say, for example, you have your laptop and it is shut down. If the machine is shut down, then you're not going to pay for nothing, okay?
Okay.
As it is shut down, you're not going to pay for anything.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, awesome. Any other question? So this concept will primarily will be, I would say, 5% of the questions will be coming from this this topic, because you need to understand the concept of pay-as-you-go model. The concept of pay-as-you-go model. When do I pay? When I was sitting for my CSOPS Systems Administration exam, I had a question that asked about a server usually is paid for with two sets. We have a server that you pay for per second, and there is another set of server that you pay per hour. Okay, so the question was on the per hour. It's per hour basis. So the question is, if person X was running this server for 45 minutes, okay, how much what would be the rate they're going to pay? If they're paying, let's say, $1 per hour, and I run my system for 45 minutes, how much am I going to pay? Okay, let me repeat the question. Per hour rate is $1 per hour, correct? Let's make it 10 just to be precise. Let's make it 10. So I pay $10 per hour, but I run my server for 45 minutes. How much am I going to pay?
Like around like $8, $9.
Teresa is 7.5. Because remember, we are paying per hour. So it will be 40, that would be 3/4 of, is it 3/4 of an hour? It will be 3/4 of an hour, because I ain't paying for the 45 minutes. They have to say, okay, what is 45 minutes of an hour, right? So you're going to pay for the full hour. So you have to know what is the concept of pay-as-you-go model. When am I going to pay? I will only pay when I use the service. If the service is per hour, I'm going to pay per hour rate. If it's for per second, I'm going to pay per second rate. If it is per the number of requests coming through, because there are some other services you pay per request that are coming through, you're going to pay for the requests that are coming through. So, Tori, what do you mean by is it 10 still?
Because you just said if you're paying a per hour rate, like you're still going to pay the per hour rate, even though you only use it for 45 minutes.
Yeah, you're going to pay per hour rate. So you're going to pay 7.5. As
Oh,
said.
okay.
It'll be
Okay,
7.5.
so, okay, great. Okay.
It will be three. I said it will be 3/4 of an hour, which will be 7.5 for total number of hours that you're going to pay, right?
Okay.
So you pay per hour. There are some in some cases I'm going to say, hey, for this one we pay per second. So you have to calculate how many seconds did I use, right? So and to answer your question, I think AFOC is, do we pay on a monthly basis or do we pay, how do we pay? So everything is paid at the end of the month. Okay, so it's calculated at the end of the month. But we have some other resources that we call them reserved instances, okay, where you can pay, you can reserve it for one year or 3 years. And also you pay either upfront or towards the end of your contract. But that is something that you're going to discuss pretty much probably in the next, not tomorrow, probably after 2 sessions, right? So that one is still on hold. But the concept of cloud computing, you have to understand when do we do pay as you go model. I wanted to remain with this one last, avoid large upfront investment. So I'll go back to our coffee shop, right? I go back to our coffee shop. Remember, this is our business. So we'll have to create it the way we want our business to run. And I'll be going back to this business over throughout this course, okay? So let's say we are in Brooklyn, right? And we've started our coffee shop. Probably started with a single coffee maker, right? The commercial one. But then we find that, hey, over the last 2 months, the number of customers have really increased, right? And therefore, we say, okay, based on our budget, we need, you know what, we need to plan for 2 more machines, correct? So we haven't expanded the area yet, because the area can only fit one coffee maker, the commercial coffee maker. So what we do is we buy 2 coffee makers, we put them in stock, all right, hoping that when time comes, we are going to use them, all right? So this is what we are talking about, investing in upfront investment. We are buying services, or we are buying our equipment before we start using them. Okay, so whether we are going to use them later or not, because we bought two more coffee makers, probably going to use one, and one will be in the store maybe for replacement purposes, right? So we are investing into equipment before we start using them, and that's what you call upfront investment. Back into our conversation about cloud computing, is that if you go to an office, they will tell you, hey, that is the IT department, right? And the IT department, they'll tell you that is our server room, and the server room is full of servers. So if let's say Abel he's a developer in this company X, and they say, hey, there is an application that we are coming up with, a new one, and it is hitting the market. The marketing department and the sales team, they are bringing up new numbers, and we expect that the uptake of our application will be huge. We are not yet in cloud, okay? We are still using our own. Abel said, hey, we can use our servers. So based on the review that we've seen, or the prototype that we are using, we find that, hey, you know what? So many, we expect a huge number of customers to come through, right? So what do we do? So that since we expect a very huge number of customers to come to our coffee shop, right, or to use our application, then we have to buy a huge number of servers, right? If I take this conversation then back into our coffee shop, so during the advertisement, we find that people in Brooklyn, I don't know places in Brooklyn. What's the busiest place in Brooklyn? Someone grew up in Brooklyn. Really, you grew up in Brooklyn, right?
Wait.
Yeah,
so-
like downtown, like maybe
Bro-
downtown.
That will be downtown in Brooklyn. Okay. So Torres says
Like
Dumbo is
Harley's,
the
like
busiest,
Brooklyn.
right?
Yeah, downtown Brooklyn.
Right. So let's say Dumbo is one of the do I say is it called Dumbo? Right. So let's say Dumbo is one of the busiest place. And we say, hey, we have this coffee shop there. Okay. So we're setting up our coffee shop, and based on the numbers that people are asking, when is this going to open? Because everyone is asking for it. So we assume that there's a very huge demand of our product. So what do? We buy a huge place, right, to accommodate huge number of customers, right? So we are investing prior to our usage. So we don't focus on whether there will be the number of customers we are expecting will be available. So we are saying, hey, based on the number that we have, we might have a huge number of customers. We ought to have a bigger space. That we try to avoid such when it comes to cloud computing. We scale seamlessly. What does that mean? We start small. You start with what you have right now. If the number increases, then the resources will increase automatically. And across the course, we're going to see how we achieve that. So within the cloud computing, we do not buy resources to be used later. You request for it right now, you use it. If you're not using it, you shut it down, or you terminate it. Okay. So we are trying to avoid upfront investment. So we only pay, or we use what we want at the time we want it. You don't have to provision it before you're using it. You want it right now, you use it right now, you stop it right now. Once you're done, you throw it out, you throw it away. So we try to avoid upfront investment. And this also we're going to see in terms of at associate level, we're going to look at data centers. Okay. So as we try to avoid using the data centers and use the cloud computing to avoid the upfront investment on coming up with a proper data center. Okay, so therefore that is one of the tricky question I've seen in terms of the cloud computing concept in the exam for the cloud practitioner. How to differentiate the point of avoid upfront investment. So I've talked about two concepts where we have our coffee shop. We anticipate a huge number of customers, so we have to buy huge space, huge resources, seats, and all that, all that. But then, does that really equivalent to the customer that we get? So we do not buy things to be used later. To that point, anyone having a question?
Yeah, I have a quick question. So for the avoiding large upfront investments, is just like just using what you need for the company? Like, is that what that is overall? Just using what you need, not trying to overbuy more of the material?
Let me say half right. Okay, so we buy for what we want to use. Okay, but we do not buy it to be used next week. Right. So we want to use it today. We buy and use it today. We don't buy it right now and to be used next week, because we want to say we only pay for what we use. You cannot buy it for next week because you start being charged from today. So if you're not using it, you either stop it or just terminate it. So you only buy it when you use it and when you want to use it. If you're not using it, stop it or terminate it. Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Right. But the question then will linger is, let's say Abel is in this organization, and Abel, let me please use you as an example. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing. My name's pronounced Abel.
Abel. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Is it Tapia?
Yeah, Tapia. Yeah.
Okay, Tapia is easier. All right. So
Mr. Tapia. Yeah.
okay. So we have our coffee shop that we started. Then we employ Tapia to come and develop an application for us. Okay. So what will be Tapia's argument to convince us to move to cloud? What will he say to convince us to move to cloud? So what will be the benefits? Say, hey, if you move to cloud, this is what you ought to gain. If you move to cloud, what are the benefits? You know, so we ask ourselves, does that really work with us well? So for the next topic, we are going to talk about the benefit of using cloud computing. I just want to keep you that in mind. But before we talk about the benefits, what do we know as we speak? What do we know as we speak? So there are three main cloud deployment models that we currently use. So I will start with the one that's called on-premise. On-premise is the same one that you're having your own laptop with you. So you usually call it an on-premise because everything is Tapia is deploying everything on his laptop. So you have your code that you're deploying for our application, you're having it on your machine, right? Everything. So if someone come, I don't know what would be. I've had stories of Brooklyn. Someone can mug you in Brooklyn. Can someone mug you downtown in Brooklyn?
Of course.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's say Tapia is he just left our coffee shop and he's just heading home. So of course he has to go with his laptop because he's typically an office there. So he's just passing some a street in Brooklyn and he get mugged. Right? That means the entire code is gone. Because the first thing that those guys will go and do is, you know, format the whole machine, right? To try to avoid anything that can take us can make us get arrested, right? So that means in any case that something happened, we have all our code, we entrusted to Tapia, it's gone, 100%. Or it's right now it's super raining. That laptop get wet. Our everything is gone, right? So the on-premise one is where we have an office with everything inside that specific office, right? So we go to an office and the IT guy were doing the introduction to the team. You know, hey, this is the IT team. The IT team will tell you, you know what? So this is the manager's office. This is where the team is, and what have you? And that is our server room, right? So that server room is where now they have all their data center, more of a data center where everything is stored, both the file servers, the network servers, everything is in that building. And that's what we call an on-premise. Then we have cloud. Now, when you have cloud, this is where usually people call it a native cloud, where everything is deployed in cloud. There's nothing if someone gets hold of your machine, you can just let them, okay, you can have it to avoid getting shot. Okay, you can have it. Because if you go tomorrow, get a new laptop, the only thing you need is to log into your AWS, into your cloud servers. So if someone steals your laptop, you still have everything pre-configured in cloud, right? So this is where we have you're developing your application, you're provisioning your resources into cloud, such that if there's something someone comes from Texas, there's so much hurricane, right? If I'm not wrong, there's so many hurricanes in Texas. So it flips up and takes up our office. Then everything is done. We have to start fresh. But then we have cloud where everything is in cloud. The only thing we want to know is that who has access to cloud, and that's something we are going to talk about much later. The only thing is, do you have access to your cloud resources? That means you can access them wherever they are, and that's why you see in the recent past, after I think during and after COVID, remote jobs has, as they say, quadrupled because of people accessing resources over the internet, right? Then lastly, we have the hybrid. Now, in the hybrid, this is where you combine the two. Okay. If you look at a mule, this is a combination of a donkey and a what? A mule. This is a breed of between the two set of animals, right?
A horse. It's a horse and a donkey.
A horse and a donkey, right?
What? No, yeah.
Right. A mule is a breed between a horse and a donkey, right? So I'm not quite sure though. I'm not sure about that. But I know is a breed between two animals. Okay. So the same way we have a mule being a breed between two animals is the same way we have a hybrid, where we combine cloud and hybrid to create a hybrid, a cloud and on-premise. And by the way, before you go to hybrid, on-premise is also referred to as private cloud. Okay. When you hear people say this is they have their own private cloud, that is also called on-premise, because you'll see some government, for example, NASA, they can't use cloud because of the sensitivity of information. So they have their own, private cloud that they use. It's not that they are using cloud as it is, but they're using a private cloud which is on premise. So there's so many organizations that they don't trust cloud. Okay, so they tend to not to use cloud at any given point, but there are some organizations who are now saying, hey, you know what? Let's try cloud, but we don't want to commit everything to cloud. Let's have some things running on cloud and some others running, the sensitive data running on our on-premise, okay? So we call them hybrid. But the way they communicate between on-premise and also cloud is a very interesting conversion, which I'm going to explain it on the networking part. How do we create a hybrid deployment? Because it is a combination between the cloud and on-premise. These are people like banks. Okay. In a federal bank, there are some data they cannot push to cloud. You see, they have these applications, right? For example, if you go to PNC, they have Zelle. If I'm not, is Zelle from PNC? I'm not quite sure, right? But it's integrated with some banks, right?
Yeah, Zelle, yeah, it's a lot of banks. Yeah.
Right. So Zelle banks integrate their their content with Zelle, but Zelle is an application outside the bank. So what is the relation between Zelle and a specific bank? Because banks are regulated not to send personal information to public cloud, right? How then do we manage to make sure that these resources are not exposed to public? Because cloud, usually we call it public cloud, right? If you hear public cloud, these are the Azure, GCP, AWS, those ones are called public cloud. But then for the private cloud, the ones that I'm referring to as the on-premise deployment. Then how then do banks have their own applications? For example, I'm not quite sure which bank have their own mobile app application. I don't know.
I think all of them. Chase.
Sorry?
Chase, maybe? Chase.
They have their own mobile application?
Yeah, I think every bank has. Oh,
Okay.
mobile.
Yeah, I know like Discover as well.
TD Bank. Don't sleep on that. Yeah, TD Bank.
Right. So let's say they have their own application, right? What the question is, what kind of information do they put on public cloud? Because as per the law, they cannot put all your bank statement in a public cloud, because that would be illegal. Right? How then do the banks manage to make sure that some content are in cloud and while other content are on premise? That's where they bring up what we call a hybrid deployment. And later in the course, we're going to talk about a resource that we say they can bring actual services from AWS to their on-premise, right? So we are going to talk about much more about it, but this is where now we have a combination of cloud and on-premise to create what we call a hybrid deployment. So far, any question?
I have a question. So with the hybrid,
All right.
like, so it just depends, like, is there like a discussion to figure out, okay, what can we keep in the cloud? What can we keep premise? Or is it more so like there's like regulations that the business has to follow as well based on like federal regulations, or like how does that work? How does the company know?
All right.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty very good question. Okay, how does the company know what to send to the organization? To cloud, right? And what to keep on premise? Okay, so it depends on the industry. For example, banks is one of the industry that is highly regulated. Okay, the other industry that is highly regulated is the health industry because of HIPAA. Right? So you cannot put my medical information up for public for anyone to see, right? So it depends on the industry and the regulations that governs that industry. Okay. Other organizations may prefer to make sure that hey, it's all about the policies within the organization. Some policy may say, hey, for the database, we cannot put our database on public domain. We want the database to be on-premise and the application to be in cloud, but they are able to talk to each other. So it depends on first the industry, right? Because some of the industry are very highly regulated. For example, the banking industry and also the health industry and also the organization's policy, right? So that depends on the so someone says hybrid equals on-premise plus cloud, where we said a mule is as a result of a horse and a donkey, which is also a hybrid. We also have chickens, right? We have chickens being a hybrid and those that traditional chickens, right? To create a hybrid. So just to answer your question, yes, it depends on one, the industry, and also the policy that governs the organization, all right? So that what determines what to be taken to cloud and what's not to be taken to cloud. And we're going to cover this pretty much towards the end of the course on in terms of the migration strategies, right? Where do you want everything on cloud? Do you want to have something to make changes and stuff like that? And that's a very good question. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right. Awesome. So I'm not quite sure whether people still use this one, but not quite sure. So let me highlight something here. Let's see, I want to see whether I'm able to write. Yes, let me get that right. Okay. So in addition to about on-premise, there's something called virtualization. Okay, there's something called virtualization. Now, in virtualization, what is that? And I bet this is something I don't know. We don't have time to go through it right now. It's so much deep in terms of virtualization, and this is the way of creating a single server to have to carry out different application. A good example is if you're using HP, sorry, if you're using any other machine apart from Mac. I know I'm not sure about Mac if they have it. But most of the laptops, they have something called virtualization. Most people don't know how to use it, but it is actually there. What the virtualization is, it allows you to create another machine or another operating system on top of what you have. So you have the Microsoft of Windows running on your machine. You are able to start up an Ubuntu or a Mac operating system on the same machine that you have. That capability is called the virtualization. The only thing that you need is the virtualization platform. Okay, the virtualization platform. And this platform here, we have that what I know of. I'm sure. I think Ronke, you can give me somewhere else, right? We have what we call Hyper-V. Sorry. We have Hyper-V for Windows, and we have VM. I think VMware. We have Citrix and so forth and so on. Those are what we call Citrix. Let me very well. Citrix, where they can use they can be used as virtualization platform. So most of the organizations use this platform to create a virtualization platform. So where a single machine can be able to accommodate so many resources. So, and lastly, we talked about the and we said on-premise also is also called the private cloud. We also talked about the hybrid deployment, where we have a combination of the two. After all that, we are going to primarily focus on one vendor of cloud computing, which is AWS Cloud. So maybe in this course, I may not be able to go through where the AWS started. Okay, we may have I may have time to see where did we start off with AWS? Where did the AWS comes from? Because we have Amazon, and then we have Amazon Web Services. So what's the difference, and what is the catch, or how do they relate to each other? Because they are owned by Bezos, right? But what's the difference between the two, and how do they come? What each come to be? So tomorrow, God willing, we are going to start off by talking about cloud computing benefits. Sasa, okay? So those cloud computing benefits is what you're going to start off tomorrow. If I'm not correct, we have few minutes, right? So, but as tomorrow, we're going to start off by talking about cloud computing benefit. So we have Tapia here. He's our new employee. How can he convince us to move to cloud? So you have to tell us, what are the benefits do I have to gain when I move to cloud? As an organization, how am I supposed to achieve? Sorry, what will be my benefit when I move to cloud? So Tapia here will tell us all that tomorrow. Is there a question, ladies and gentlemen?
Yes, I have a question.
Right, good.
For the slides that you have, like, will we be able to see this as well to like look over it, or we just have to look at the recording? Yeah.
I'll see whether we can get because these ones are for the instructors.
Oh, okay.
But I'll see whether we can get for the students.
Okay.
They are a little bit different, but yeah, I'll see whether we can get for the students.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Any other question? Okay, so if there's no question, Bailey, you want to pick it up from there?
Yeah. So I mean, if you know, if nobody has any more questions, does anybody have any questions about like anything else that we discussed today? Like how to access any information or anything?
If not at this moment. Things seem pretty clear.
Okay. Well, I'm glad things seem clear. You know, we appreciate everybody for coming. Thank you, Steve, for kind of like giving us an insight on like just like some introduction on like what AWS is, and definitely look forward to tomorrow meeting with everyone. Yeah, I think that's the most important point. I'm gonna be sending out an email with some of the links that we had, like the Discord link, the different materials that we had, the course hub. I'll send that out shortly, and we recorded as well. So yeah, thank you guys for coming. We're gonna give you guys the rest of your Saturday to watch the cloud videos or whatever else you want to do.
I have a quick question, actually. Sorry.
Right, go ahead.
For the recording, when will we like be able to get it? Do you think by when will it be uploaded? Like for the recording?
Yes, I mean, generally it's gonna be as soon as we upload it, like we'll try to get it up like within a few hours.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to upload it pretty quickly because I think some students, I think some of the emails that I sent out went to spam. So I'm gonna try to get it out pretty quick. Just
Oh yeah, because like wasn't there like 50 booked openings and like I think like only what 10 or 11 people are here today?
yeah, that's interesting.
Like I just thought that maybe like they signed up for there were different instructors or different sessions, but like yeah, were all of the